Hello, hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone. So glad that you're here today. I'd love to have everybody who's coming into the webinar here to maybe type your name and where you're tuning in from in the chat. Make sure your chat is dropped down to everybody so we can all see who is here today. And we're going to take a few minutes to let people trickle in. Hi, Tanisha. Thank you for being here. I'm tuning in from Portland, Oregon, and we've had some pretty dreary weather for summertime, and it's an absolutely stunning, gorgeous bluebird day. So I'm very grateful for that. Hi, Jennifer. Good to see you. Hi, Madison. We're going to give it another minute here before we get started, just to let people trickle in here. Hi, Christine. All right. So yeah, as you come into the webinar space, just feel free to continue typing your name and where you're tuning in from. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today for our special webinar, How to Build a Business Focused on Women's Health. And I'm Felicia Royce. I'm the Director of Alumni and Career Services here with ACHS, and I'm joined today by Gina Schneps. She's our marketing manager. Gina's just, she's going to be kind of in the background. So if any technical issues come up, she'll be there to support us. I like to lead all of our webinars with our mission and our vision. Our mission here at ACHS is to lead the advancement of evidence-based integrative health and wellness education through experiential online learning and sustainable practices. Our vision is that integrative health and wellness education is accessible to global communities, promoting sustainable and healthy futures for all. So just a quick agenda and some housekeeping. You'll notice that your audio is muted, and that's just because we do record this webinar and we do email this. You will get an emailed recording, and if you're not able to attend live, but you've signed up for the register for the webinar, you'll get a recording emailed to you as well. So we're going to start off with a panelist interview. And it's going to be kind of round robin style. We're going to have a discussion. I really want this webinar to be interactive. So even though you can't go off mute and talk, I'd love for you to ask questions in the chat. You know, any comments that you have. We want to make sure that this is really fun and interactive. And so don't be shy using that chat box. And at the end, we will have some time for a Q&A. So if you have any burning questions at the end, we'll have time for that. So I'm going to start here by introducing our first guest panelist, Tanya. Tanya has graduated, she's an alumni of ACHS. She graduated from our Master's in Complementary Alternative Medicine program. And so, yeah, welcome, Tanya. If you want to take a few minutes to share a little bit about your background, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you, Felicia. So, yeah, my name is Tanya Ellie. I am a holistic practitioner and health coach, and I specialize in women's holistic health. So, I graduated from ACHS in 2023, so a little over a year ago, in complementary and alternative medicine, which I think is now called integrative health sciences, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And I also got a master's in health and wellness and two graduate certificates in holistic nutrition and wellness coaching. So my journey started in my undergraduate program. So I studied health science and business, and I actually at that point went the business route. So I went into the corporate world. I worked actually as an analyst, which is a little different than what I do now. But I kept getting drawn back into wellness work. So I started studying at ACHS, which at that point was just for fun. I thought just because I wanted to learn. And I found myself volunteering multiple times at different organizations for our corporate well-being programs. So eventually I realized, I have multiple master's degrees, certificates. I'm spending most of my time at work either doing corporate wellness or wishing I was doing corporate wellness. So I eventually realized that I just needed to follow my passion and go all in. So when I graduated from ACHS, I started my own holistic health business, and that's where I am today. So I work with women one on one, I do wellness coaching, I do functional labs, and I also have a course and a membership. So I'm really happy that I made that decision because I'm so much happier doing what I love today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And we're going to do a deeper dive into Tanya's business as well. But thank you for that introduction. Our second panelist today is Isabelle. I will probably say your name incorrectly. Do you want to say your last name?
Yes, my name is Isabelle GianDomenico.
Okay, I would have said it incorrectly. So I'm glad that you said that for me. Isabelle is also an alumni of ACHS. She graduated from our MS in Health and Wellness program. And so, yeah, if you want to go ahead and take it away, Isabelle, that'd be great.
Yeah, so as she had said, I graduated with the Master of Science in Health and Wellness program. I graduated in June of last year. So I've been, working on my practice, Sunrise Wellness and Holistic Health, since I actually opened just about a year ago this week, actually. I got into this because I always knew I loved the health sciences. In undergrad, I was a public health major and got a minor in psychology. Originally, I was on the pre-physical therapy track, so I was in regular medicine at that point. And my health kind of took a turn, and I found out that I have endometriosis. And through my chiropractor, there was a holistic practitioner that was working there. And she inspired me through working with her and working through my own health issues to really have that root cause approach. And there was this newfound hope with working with holistic medicine versus just traditional medicine alone. So I looked at her and I was like, I'm changing my whole career path. I want to intern with you. I want to work with you. And then I want to go and get my master's in holistic health of some kind. And that's exactly what I did. And then I started my own practice right after graduation. And the whole point of Sunrise Wellness and Holistic Health is that a sunrise kind of represents new hope and a new journey beginning. And my slogan is "A new you is dawning," because in my opinion, you're never too late in your health and wellness journey to take control of your own health and change the whole direction of where you're going with your health.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing. So we're going to get into some questions and discussion, but and we're definitely going to dive into, why they alluded to it in their introductions, but why our panelists really wanted to go this direction with their career. But I thought it was important to share some statistics just about women's health care and why the coaching role is so important. So women are 2 times more likely to suffer from depression and other mental health issues, according to the NIH. Women face barriers in access to healthcare. And as of 2022, 22% of women in the US skipped preventative healthcare services. We don't know the exact reasons for all of those women to skip their healthcare practices. And by no means do I think health coaching replaces a PCP or OBGYN, but I think that's an important statistic to think about. An NIH study found that peer-like relationship between patients and health coaches was important for establishing a closer, trusting relationship where patients felt able to be more open and engaged, in contrast to the inequality in social power between patients and clinicians. I thought that was a really powerful statement. I actually read through that whole study. It was very fascinating. But I just wanted to kind of set the table with some of those statistics. And there's the references there. On that same note, I wanted to just start exploring, what this path has looked like for Isabelle and Tanya. So I'm going to ask some questions here just to kind of facilitate But like I had mentioned, I really want this to be interactive. So please, type in your questions as we go. We can have an interactive discussion together. So, Tanya, do you mind starting with the first question? What are the most beneficial tools and resources you used when building your business?
Sure. So this is okay, so I actually eventually thought you meant within ACHS, but I can talk about this from both angles. So within ACHS, of course, besides the classes and all the knowledge, I would say the staff that have really been supportive. I didn't even realize as I was moving through my courses that post graduation I would have so much support. And so that's been really helpful, especially Felicia, shout out. You've been amazing. I honestly can't even remember like what your title is because it's so all encompassing what you help
Aw.
me with. Like I feel I can just come to you with anything. So legal questions, like certain aspects of my business that I don't really know how to start and I don't feel like recreating the wheel. Networking, being connected with other practitioners, especially ACHS alumni, has been really helpful, and just like the moral support
That's
throughout time and time again. And then I think outside of ACHS, so I'm here in San Diego. We have a women's business center that has been really helpful to get kind of information about how to do certain aspects of business that we're not really, we don't pop out of the womb knowing how to create a business. And these are things that people have been doing for so long that there's really no reason to recreate the wheel. Like we can reach out to people who have done this before, and that's really where especially the San Diego Women's Business Center, but I'm sure in every community there's some kind of community resource that you can reach out to that can give you the resources you need to get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so helpful. And thank you for the shout out. That was very kind. It's been
Very
such a
deserved.
pleasure to work with both of you. Isabelle, do you have anything you wanted to add about tools and resources that have been really helpful?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like I'm crediting you too, because you've been so helpful throughout the last year. We've had, every couple months a conversation or even more frequently on the phone about, different things and, working with other alumni and stuff like that, such as Tanya has been awesome. So, we all kind of are building this community post-graduate, which as Tanya said, I had no idea that we're going to all stay like close knit after this, especially, with you, Felicia, to have that ongoing support, which is just great in connecting with other people. Besides that, having really good mentors and people you can check in with are just so helpful. I always still, credit the holistic practitioner I worked with, and she's still my mentor today. And she, I wouldn't be here without her. And, having a good business mentor, my father is a really great business mentor. So having somebody you can check in with that helps you, like Tanya said, not reinvent the wheel, because people have been there before you to do that. And so checking in with those people and having them as really good resources are super helpful to have in your life. In terms of like low weight, like, things to help you in terms of like physical tools, using like social media things like Canva to help create content and flyers and PowerPoints and all these different things, and using those free resources that you can find online so you're not spending extra money paying for things is a really good way also to build your business and get it out there and everything like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying all of that. And again, it's been such a pleasure to work with you. And I'm so excited that you and Tanya have been working together. That's been such a great connection, a professional connection there. I don't know if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about this, but a question I get a lot is how do I make those connections to find mentorship? And so, in my role, I help students maybe find some different practitioners in their community, but they may not have like a connection to them yet. So when you knew you wanted to be mentored, how did that conversation sound, or how did you, reach out to that holistic practitioner and say, hey, I really would like your support with this? Like, what did that look like?
Honestly, it's finding people that you connect with, and certain people with your, depending on your personality, jive with certain people versus not, and knowing who is going to be that really supportive character almost in your life is somebody to gravitate towards and say, hey, I need the help. I really could use a mentor. Would you mind working with me? And, I'd love to learn from you and what you've taught me so far. So kind of just reaching out to people, not being afraid to ask for help is how you really establish those connections, honestly.
Yeah, because everyone had to start somewhere, right? That's
Yeah.
what I always remember is even that person that you look up to started from ground
Mhm.
zero.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you so much. Anything else either of you want to add before I move on? Any questions in the chat? Anything come up from this that you wanted to comment about? Oh, great question. Should mentorships be payment based? So my thought is that no, you don't have to pay for that service, right? Like if you can find the right connection that's willing to bring you on for job shadowing or mentorship, maybe there's some sort of agreement that you have. Maybe you have a contract together, maybe you work for them in the future, maybe there's some sort of situational opportunity there. But I often say, like, if we can avoid spending a lot of money on things, it costs enough just to get your business off the ground. I don't think mentorship should be paid. Now, there are certain situations, like if you want to become a registered herbalist, sometimes you have to hire a registered herbalist to help you get through that process. And that makes sense to do that. But generally, I'd say no. I don't know if either of you have anything to tag on to that comment, like if you have any thoughts on that. But I don't think either of you paid for any mentorship, right?
No, I think it should be personal, and creating that lasting relationship, because a mentor, it could be a little while, but often it's going to be more of a lifelong check in with somebody. So if you're paying for it, it takes kind of that personal element probably out of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then also, excuse me, ACHS has a mentorship program that's free. It's volunteer based. It's an awesome program. So if you wanted to talk about that offline, I could give you more information about that as well. Carrie Ann, thank you for the kind comment. And she said, Tanya, I am curious, since you were previously in the corporate world, how did you find the financial resources to establish an independent business? Also, what advice can you offer me as a master's student in integrative health toward my future journey, forming a business? So we'll probably get into some of that advice. You're probably going to be able to take a lot out of what we're going to talk about. So we might go back to that section of the question. But Tanya, do you mind talking a little bit about like what financial resources you might have used to build your business?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because I feel like we have to be practical about things, right? You want to make sure that you can pay for your rent, pay for your bills, make sure that you're able to live your life. So, one of the things that was actually beneficial about being in the corporate world was that I was able to save money in order to do this. So, I don't think I would have been able to do this without, unless I tried. I think there are loans, ways that you can go about it from a different route that I just don't have any experience with. Maybe Felicia can share a little bit about that. But from my personal experience, I went through the corporate route. I was there for quite a few years, so I was able to save a lot of money. And then I used that money to funnel it into my business. And so I would say in the first few years, maybe the first year or two, you should expect that you're not, I mean, this is not a rule of thumb for everyone, but you should expect to not be able to have that be your only means of financial income. So it's really important to think about things practically and have that, financial support, however you go about it, whether it's having a job on the side, a part-time job, a job that you work for several years and then transition into your business, or a loan, which maybe Felicia will have some information about. So I think I really like the direction that you're thinking, because that's how you make it a reality, is by thinking practically and really taking the right steps to take care of yourself too.
Such great advice. I wholeheartedly agree. It takes a good year or two to start getting consistent income into a small business. And then you do have things like rent or printer ink or those things. And there are grants out there as well. And the Small Business Administration, I'll see if I can share a link with all of you at the end. They have great grant resources there. And we're talking about women's health. They have a lot of small business, women owned business grants out there as well. Loans, I'm always like, ugh, I don't know how I feel about loans because you have to pay them back and they're usually higher interest, but that is always an option. Isabelle, do you have anything to add as far as like financial preparation?
No, I think you guys covered most of that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and Carrie Ann, to address the other part of your question, when we get to the end, if you still have like specific questions about, you know, how this would fit into your journey, let's talk about that. But I think you're going to get a lot out of these following slides too. And then I got one more question before we move on. Just curious, do you work out of your home or do you rent office space? Tanya, do you want to start with that question?
Sure. So I created a little office at my home. So this is my office, but it is at home.
Yeah, great. That's definitely a way to keep overhead costs lower, right?
Mhm.
Isabelle, I think you have a physical brick and mortar, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes, so I do both virtual and I do in person. But my dad owns an accounting firm, so I have a room off of the building he owns.
Awesome. Perfect. I hope that answered your question, Christine.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question here, and we'll start with Isabelle, but I'll read the question. Why do you feel it's important to focus on women's healthcare in your practice? And if you want to share any tidbits about why you chose this path that, you know, you feel comfortable sharing, that would be great
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely. So, as I kind of alluded to when I was, talking about my introduction a little bit, my own women's health condition is how I ended up here. And I wasn't sure, honestly, when I opened my practice, if I would focus on women's health or what direction I was going to take it in. But the path kind of led me here, not even knowing it. When they said in school and classes, they're like, you have to do a project on, pick a condition of any kind. And I always found myself doing either mental health conditions or physical women's health conditions. And as you kind of were talking about the statistics, they're so heavily intertwined. So I ended up niching myself in women's health, and I got two certificates. I got one that's in integrative approaches to pelvic pain in women, and then another one that was integrative approaches to mental health, anxiety, and depression specifically. So I ended up going down that route and niching myself because I saw how in the traditional medicine field, and of course it doesn't apply to all doctors, but women's health conditions are often overlooked and they're often not taken seriously enough. I had symptoms of endometriosis for at least 7 years, which is honestly the average time of waiting for a diagnosis before I was even recognized and the word endometriosis was brought up in a clinical diagnosis way. And of course, my symptoms were, oh, this is just part of being a woman. And, this happens to some women. And my symptoms were keeping me from school and from working and doing different things that I wasn't living a normal life. So I made my goal, as when I opened a practice myself, I said, as a women's health holistic practitioner, my goal is going to be, I'm going to listen to people and hear their full story and validate their feelings, because I've seen so many stories and talking to other women in, the endometriosis community, especially. And that goes for a lot of other women's health conditions. It goes for, postpartum depression. It goes for PMS and perimenopause and menopause. All these issues are so overlooked. And it's like, well, it's just part of being a woman. And I think there's a lot more to it. So that's why I felt like it was so important to focus on women's healthcare and hormone health and really addressing the root cause of your symptoms and looking at the whole body. Because, although women's health is so important, part of women's health is looking at your digestion and your mental health and your nervous system and your stress and what's going on in your body and addressing food intolerances and looking at all these different things. And, women's health, it's also looking at your whole body health as well, which again is overlooked in a lot of directions as well. So I kind of made it my goal to say, I think it's so important to focus on women's healthcare because I've seen over the years how women are treated, and I'm trying to change the narrative on all of it.
Yes. Yes, to all of that. I really appreciate you sharing that and sharing your personal story. I think it's also very empowering when we share our story and other people who might be going through it, hearing that I'm not alone, and
Yeah,
having a community, and that's what you've really built, which is really wonderful and so needed. So thank you for what you do.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Tanya, do you want to take this question and yeah, let us know kind of what led you down this path?
Sure. So I could not agree more with everything that Isabel said. So, so true. Women's health has been so overlooked, and we see this in so many different ways, right? Like, even with studies, like health studies, they've been done almost exclusively on men. I think it was until the 1970s or something like that. And I remember, like, I did a research paper for actually at ACHS about fertility and diet. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be so easy. And I'm starting to look up the papers. Literally, the studies, I mean, it was almost exclusively on men. I think I scraped together maybe 10 studies on women with nutrition and fertility, which is insane because, nutrition is like the first step we go to when we're thinking about preparing a woman for pregnancy and, even postpartum and all that. So it doesn't make sense. Women's bodies are so complex, and that's been the excuse for why women have not been as big of a focus. But actually, from my perspective, and I know from many of our perspectives, that's the reason why it should be the focus, because we are so much more complex. Our internal systems are, they do amazing things. And one of my favorite things about working with women is giving them the empowerment of understanding their bodies, understanding what's going on, understanding the next step they can take, even when their primary care physician has said, oh, it's just part of being a woman, severe PMS, it's just part of being a woman. And it's like, no, it's actually not. Something's going on. There's a red flag, and we need to address that. So it's really empowering all around for us to be able to connect on that level and both share that information and receive that information. So it really is just so meaningful to me to be able to be a part of that conversation.
Yes, yes. And two things came up for me with what you just said. And the first one is research and the importance of research. There isn't as much research, right? And it only goes back a couple of decades, to your point. And so we need professionals out there doing the research side as much as we need the health coaching side, and people doing both, honestly, and staying up to speed on the new research, because more and more is coming out as we continue to focus on this more in our communities. And then the other piece that really came up for me was the advocacy piece, right? Like, in your role as a health coach, helping your clients find the care that they need, and be able to advocate for themselves. And when they're being gaslit or they're not, being heard, like helping them find their voice in that. I think that is so powerful. So thank
Yeah.
you for what you do.
And can I add one other thing?
Yeah, that's the point of this conversation, of course.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that what you said brought to mind that, I have women who find me randomly on Instagram. They'll just see a post and they'll be like, "Oh, this kind of looks interesting." It'll be like something about menstrual cycle or something like that. And it's like they don't know that they don't know these things. Like the education is so limited that, for example, like bring up PMS again. It's like women literally don't know that there is another way. So it's just giving, putting that education out there and making it like starting the conversation is so, I just feel like it's so important.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying when Isabel was talking about just like the more we share, the more that we provide a safe space, the more we connect with each other and with the community. So Carrie Ann said, thank you, Tanya, for those words of encouragement. She's glad that you could be doing what you're doing today. And then Shea, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, um, said, what are the ways to speed up on research while conducting a business? You know, I think having, and both of you can speak to this research piece as well, but I think having access to things like PubMed and, relevant and legitimate sources to get your research, like the National Institute of Health, being able to have quick access to those things, and to be a contributor. We did one of our last webinars was around research and actually doing that as a living. So I can definitely share that webinar with you all if you're more interested in that sector. But yeah, I don't know. As far as research goes for you both, do you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to do some research? And if so, do you have like a recommendation on what to use? I'm sure it doesn't come up often for you, but do you want to add anything to that?
Honestly, it comes up a lot when I'm working on workshops, because I've done a couple of workshops now on women's health, or we just even did an Instagram live together a couple weeks ago. And when you're looking through information, it's an opportunity to dive deeper and look through and be like, okay, I'm going to pull a resource that kind of backs this, and I'm going to find further information on this different component. So honestly, it's not even about like superficial research. Sometimes, obviously when you graduate, like the basics of it usually, but going deeper dives like into a specific topic in front of you. Like I did one workshop just on PMS, and I did such a deep dive of research, just looking into all the different aspects of it to share with any of the viewers. And I'll do that in upcoming, lives or different things that I'll do in workshops coming up in the fall. But that's kind of where I find my research. And as well as when you have a client come in that's new, and everybody's going to have a different set of symptoms. Just because they come in for, say, PMS does not mean PMS is their only symptom. You're going to look at, like I said before, the whole body of health. So you're going to be sitting on Google researching and finding those scholarly resources, and finding those good ones like we were taught in school to find, to back what you're going to give to your client. Because a lot of what we do is educating people, because they come to you with all these symptoms and like, what's wrong with me? What do I do about this? And that's where your job is, to sit and research. So the researching never stops, no matter what aspect of the business you're working on, whether it's with clients or just social media posts, even, to be honest. And sometimes you're pulling resources to share with your followers. So it's really, whatever way you go with it, I always find myself researching, no matter what part of the business I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important piece, and it's always changing. And I think people want to see their research too.
Mm.
So that's really, really helpful. And just a reminder, I mean, we have library services here. So there are specific articles that our librarian can help you find, and, tap into all those resources that you have available to you as well. Okay, moving on. What are your favorite networking techniques? Tanya, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. So when I first started out, I was in the corporate well-being world. And so I really didn't have any well-being network at all. As I mentioned before, I was an analyst. So I was kind of, on my own. So really the way I started my network was literally through going onto LinkedIn, finding women who were doing amazing things that were like, exactly what I want to be doing, whatever, 5 years, 10 years from now, and just messaging them and just being like, hey, maybe if we have a connection, I noticed that we're connected with so-and-so. I think what you're doing is so interesting, and I'd love to hear more about what your day-to-day work looks like. Would you be interested in connecting for like a really quick, 20, 30-minute discussion? And I would say more times than not, people do respond, and you can have a back and forth there, or you can connect with them. So that was kind of where I started my networking. And then as my network grew, it became a little bit more organic. So I would notice that somebody I'm connected with is also connected with someone who I find really interesting. And I could ask them like, hey, would you mind introducing me to so-and-so? Or even somebody could speak with someone else and they think, oh, Tanya might find this person interesting. And then they'd be like, hey, can I connect you with so-and-so? So it really, like, once you have that first kind of circle of a network, it really starts to grow from there. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention was that I love connecting with women in my own community. So being able to actually sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone or see what their office looks like and connect on, our own local market and how things have been working here, that's been really interesting too. That's kind of another lens into networking.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of like women's circles, both for practitioners and for people in the community, and how cool it is to bring everyone together and share their professional nuggets of wisdom. And, everyone has a different flavor to their business. And so I think sharing that and like being able to refer back and forth is really powerful too. Thank you for sharing that. Isabelle, do you want to share what some of your techniques look like?
Yeah, definitely. I also do the same thing that Tanya was saying about personally messaging people or emailing people because, having that one-to-one connection and really saying to them in the email, hey, let's schedule a Zoom meeting, or if they're local, let's do an in-person meeting to kind of, exchange the business cards and flyers or whatever you have, for resources, and to have that good half hour to an hour conversation with people, really establishing that relationship to get that referral partner. And some stick and some don't. So you're gonna have to just see what people are, looking for in you and what you're looking for in others. Outside of that, like Facebook groups have been really great, especially ones that are local. So I'm in Massachusetts. So looking at different women's Massachusetts networking groups and really just connecting and talking with like-minded women who are on the same page as you that do something different in their business but really think that what you do is very valuable. So just again, making those personal connections, or even just sitting on Google and seeing what other health and wellness businesses are in your area and emailing people and just connecting with those local businesses is such a great way to connect with people. And again, scheduling those in-person or Zoom meetings to have that face-to-face connection is a great way to establish a relationship with people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I think going to events in your area, there's a lot of new entrepreneurial meetings, like meetup groups. If there's like a health and wellness fair that comes to your town, or I see a lot, like I live in Portland, so it might be different in other places, but I see a lot of like integrative health and wellness, women's focused events that come to town. And I think if you're brand new at the networking piece, you're still building that, I always say go where the like-minded people are, like go, where you might meet people who are in a similar field. So thanks for sharing that. And then I don't know if you guys mind if I kind of share that Tanya and Isabelle didn't know each other, um, 6 months ago or 3 months ago. But they had such similar businesses. I thought, well, it'd be super cool to like have them meet each other. So through kind of a facilitation of like just setting up a meeting, they ended up working together, and then they just did this super cool Instagram live together, which I thought was so neat. And what a great way to combine forces and promote both of your businesses. And I thought that was a good nugget of information to add, because you literally are networking with each other, and like you have exemplified that through how you're using that networking connection. It's been really cool. You want to talk at all about that event, like how
Yeah,
how that came together?
yeah, I remember the first time Tanya and I talked, I think we just did a regular phone call and we talked for like an hour and a half on the phone. And I was like, I can't believe we've been talking this long. Like, it's just so great to connect to somebody like-minded. I was like, I didn't realize we were on the phone for an hour and a half. Like, this was great. So we were like, how are we going to help each other? What are we going to do? And just because we're both women's health holistic practitioners, we do the same thing, but we do things in different ways. And obviously we're from opposite ends of the country, so we're appealing to the different people in our area, but we're pairing up on the things we are like-minded. Like we just did our Instagram live, like you said, on cycle syncing and self-care during the menstrual cycle, and we're just kind of teaming up to help women and just get the word out there and promote each other almost and stuff like that.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, and then Tanya, I'll start with you on this one. What is a hurdle or a challenge that you've faced throughout this process of building your business that you feel comfortable sharing, of course.
Yeah, sure. So I would say the biggest challenge for me has been getting exposure, and potentially an aspect of that is having the patience that over time I'll build exposure because you kind of jump out of the gates and you're like, okay, I have all this information. I want to help literally every woman on planet Earth. Um, and then you're surprised when there's not a line out the door. But you have to just be patient that over time, that exposure will come. Like, I feel confident that if I have a group of women in a room, theoretically, I mean, not theoretically speaking, like for a virtual room, which is really how I run my business, that I will be able to connect with them and share information with them and change lives, hopefully. But it's getting the women in the room that I think is the biggest challenge. So that's something that I've worked with over time and something that I'm trying to have like patience with for, over the long term that I'm going to be able to build that. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention, I know you said one challenge, but I just wanted to mention
You
like
can, yes, as many as you want.
another
We can talk
challenge.
about any of them.
There are a lot of challenges. One other challenge that I'll mention is I am I think oftentimes when women start businesses, they're kind of like, I want to say type A, like really go getter, want to like, do it all. And I really struggle with having a list of like literally 100 things that I want to do and really narrowing down, okay, I have this many hours in the day. I'm running my own business because I want to be able to have a flexible life and not work myself crazy long hours like I did when I was in the corporate world. So I really have to like reel it in and decide, these are the top 2 things I want to work on today, or these are the top 10 things I'm going to focus on for my business this month. So it's like this double-edged sword of like you have all the power to do whatever you want with your business, but also you're your own boss and you got to be like a good boss to yourself.
Such great advice. I've really appreciated your ability to like bring in new and fresh things into your business and pivot, and that's been really cool to see, like, just over time, like how you've integrated new things, and it's exciting. Like it's never like you get to this pinnacle, right, where you're like, I made it. You're
Oh yeah.
always developing, and so you articulated that very well. Thank you. um Isabelle, what do you feel comfortable sharing as far as kind of your own process going through building a business and becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest challenges, honestly, that I've faced when building my business is that nobody really has an understanding of what I actually do. So I have had to make it my goal to really explain very well because a lot of people think they hear the whole word holistic and they have no idea what it means. They're like, okay, so what does that actually mean? What does it mean that you're in holistic wellness and different things like that? Because there's so many, as we know, different domains to holistic, and it can be aromatherapy, it can be nutrition, it can be all different kinds of things. So I have to explain to people that I try to brand myself more as the holistic nutrition because I am board certified in holistic nutrition, and that is more what I focus my business on. And so that has been like the biggest challenge, honestly, is people are like, well, what do you actually do with people? So I have to explain. I help people with lifestyle changes. I help people change their diet. And, we don't calorie count in here, but we also come up with a plan that's personalized to you. So you really have to go into it and describe especially when we're talking about networking, you really have to explain what you do, because I realized at one point back in January, and I was about, 4 or 5 months in, I had a nurse practitioner who was really interested in what I did, but she said, I have no understanding of what actually you offer in your practice. And so after spending another one-to-one meeting with her explaining it, I realized I wasn't explaining what I was doing well enough. So kind of having your elevator pitch ready of what you do, no matter what brand, like, part of holistic, what medicine you're in, you kind of really have to explain what you do and like almost list your services, to be honest, because nobody really knows what direction you're actually going in. And that's been like a really big challenge that I didn't even realize at first, because I thought everybody knew what it was, but apparently, it's something that you have to specify. And I learned that, the hard way, but it happens eventually. It's a learning curve with anything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like you have all this knowledge and you know how you help people.
Right. Yeah.
How do you bring people to that understanding of, you know, how they can receive that help and how they can express to others how you help people? So that's a really, really good piece of advice there. Thank you. And kind of along the same lines of what we're talking about, Lacey had asked, in your businesses, do you ask medical history questions on your intake forms? Is there anything you feel someone isn't open to discussing with you about women's health or health in general? As she said, or so much that gets discarded, and they don't know that it should be discussed. So let's start with the beginning part of that question. Do you take a health history on your intakes?
Yes.
And I would assume both of you have intake forms and
Yes.
disclaimers and all of that. Let me see if I can reread this. Is there anything you feel someone isn't open to discussing? Do you think that is because there's so much unknown about women's health in general, or because it gets discarded? Okay, I had to reread that. So do you feel like sometimes when you meet with a client, they don't maybe even know what to discuss, or like maybe they aren't always honest about their health history? I think that's the question being asked here. And like, how do you address that?
I can take that. So honestly, women, when they come into you, or anybody, to be honest, male or female, when they're coming into you to talk about their health history, they typically have this story that, at least that I found in my practice, starting with the onset of their symptoms and telling you the progression all the way through, because they finally have the full hour with me. That's, I mean, I'm not sure how long her initial, consultations are, but for me, it's an hour to sit and tell you the full history. And it's kind of just a story that they're telling about their health. So it's not even as, question answer based. It's really, they know what they want to tell you and what they want to address, and they're going to have the full story most of the time ready for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're taking that time, that really crucial time, to fully listen and hear. And I'm assuming both of you ask follow-up questions if something doesn't make sense, and, you
Yeah.
know, understand where there's the scope of practice boundaries and all of that. Tanya, do you have anything else you wanted to add in terms of like how you kind of run your practice and medical history and all of that?
I would say, yeah, I do medical history questions and we have a conversation about it when we meet. But this is like kind of where it gets into where holistic health hasn't quite gotten to where I hope it will one day be. Women typically, I can only speak for myself personally, but I'm pretty sure this applies globally, that women only come to me when they've reached kind of the end of the rope. They've tried everything. They've seen their primary care physician, specialists, like they've tried doing whatever conventional lab work or medication or whatever it may be. They're coming to me because they're finally at the point where, it's got to end and they want to do it the natural way, and they're just tired of getting all of these runaround appointments. So I hope one day it will come to the point where women come to me like, I'm kind of just interested in holistic health and I want to, take care of my body the best way I can, kind of the way you would do with like a preventative appointment with your primary care physician. But this is kind of in response to your question. If people come and they don't really know, if they don't really share anything, typically they're sharing like a laundry list of the things that have been going wrong, and you're trying to handle that. On the flip side, this is kind of why I created my course and my membership. I can't remember if I mentioned that I do that too, but I have a course that's kind of just like the foundations of women's health, and a membership that does monthly, like holistic health women's topics. So women who are kind of just interested in like dipping a toe in the water or like learning the basics will go that route. But if they're meeting with me specifically for like the one-on-one coaching or the functional labs, they have gone to the point where they know absolutely what's wrong and they want to fix it.
Yeah,
Hopefully that answers the question.
I think it does. Absolutely. Did that answer your question? Lacey said, thank you for the great responses.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can move on to kind of our last question here. sharing just a quick tip on, what's worked for you. I know we talked about Instagram Live, and I think we've touched on this a little bit, but maybe just one thing that you think would be helpful for the audience to know about promoting their new business. Like what's been a great platform for you, or just anything you want to share. Sorry,
Just
Isabelle.
honestly, just like we talked about before, the networking and making those connections is the best way to promote your business. I've tried running a Facebook ad before for an event or workshop that I did. That's not how the word gets out there. In my personal experience, I find that making those connections that, 6 months and a year later, I'm still working with these different women that I've been connecting with. They're the ones that are going to talk about you and promote you. And that's the lasting ones, and the deep connections are the ones that are going to keep you going. So that's my best advice, is keep connecting with people and never stop.
Yeah, word of mouth is powerful. Yeah. Tanya?
Yeah, so for me, I've kind of gone a different route. I don't know how much more effective it's been, but I started with Instagram. So I really love the idea that I can connect with women all over the world through Instagram and so many different walks of life. Like, just like no two women that I meet with are the same. So I really go through Instagram, and then that's where women come into my world and like learn things, like that idea of not knowing what they don't know. So when they land on my page, they might not even know that there's certain things you can do for gut health, or that your menstrual cycle spans for the entire month versus just your period. Like, these are things that women don't actually know until they learn from the resources that I share. And then from there, they have the option to go deeper. So I'll share things like, maybe I post something about gut health, and then I'll say, by the way, this month in the membership, we're talking about all about gut health. So if you're interested, like message me and I'll share the link. So people have the option to go deeper, whether it's joining the course or the membership or reading on my blog, or I just started a podcast. So listening to my podcast, signing up for my weekly newsletter. So I just have so many different ways for women to get into my world. And then if it's aligned, they will eventually get to the point where they reach like my offerings page, and then they can take that additional step if they're interested. I also have something called a lead magnet, which, if you're not familiar, it's basically just a little free resource that you can share, that you can share some information, and then it's kind of similar to what I mentioned before, where once you get to the bottom, it's like, hey, if you're interested in going a little bit deeper, you can join my newsletter or join my course or whatever it may be. So that's been a way that I've really gotten a lot more women involved. And right now I'm doing a quiz. So I used to do just like a PDF, but now I do a quiz, which is like a little bit more fun. And it's called What's Your Wellness Personality? So women can take that and learn what their wellness personality is. And actually, based on the information they give me, which is like how deep they are in their wellness journey, they'll get a results page that's like, the course might be perfect for you, or like, read this blog, it's going to help. So it's a way to kind of personalize too. So I don't know if we can share in the chat if anyone's interested in checking that out.
I shared it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for providing that. That's super cool. I love both of your ideas on how you reach people. I think it's so awesome that you were able to share that wisdom. So we're gonna move on to the live Q&A. We have about 5 minutes or so, but I think we have enough time to address some of these questions. I do want to I don't think I said this at the beginning, but I actually get the transcript. So for questions that aren't addressed, any legal questions, I'll probably reach out to you personally rather than go into those things here today in the webinar, just because it can be a long explanation, and I don't think this is necessarily the place for that. So just know, if you did have a legal question or questions about how to open an LLC, I will follow up with you personally and we will talk about those things. But in terms of what questions are going to be relevant to what we're talking about here today, I'm going to go back through. How do you respond to your client when they ask you what's wrong, but you don't know what's wrong with them in that moment? So I think that this person's asking, how do you respond? I'm not sure. Shea, do you mind maybe being more specific about that question? I'm sorry, I don't quite know how to pose that. So if you're still here, I would love to maybe get a little more specificity there. But the next question is, how difficult was it to determine what to charge for your services?
So I guess I can start. Basically, I just did like a little bit of a competitive analysis, like searching on Google, asking other practitioners that I know what they charge. And then from there, you kind of have a range of like, okay, this is the reasonable lowest point, this is the reasonable highest point. And from there, you can decide like, do I want to be super affordable and help as many people as possible? Or do I want to be a little bit more of like, premium service and go super deep with each person, you know, like give that premium experience. So it's kind of really up to you. But obviously, if you go on the lower range, you're going to be able to attract more people. So maybe when you're first starting, it's better to start like on the lower end and then kind of like creep your way up as you gain more experience and as you're able to provide more. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Isabel, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just kind of the same thing of asking around, to different people, again, consulting mentors and different people to say, like, when you were starting out your practice or your business, no matter if it's in holistic or not, to say, like, what do you charge per hour, half hour? What do you think is reasonable? And kind of just, again, having people guide you and doing a little research on, what a specialist would cost to see in women's health or something like that. And just shopping around and seeing, and you kind of just determine something that's kind of more reasonable to start with. And like she said, eventually when you're more deep into it, you can keep increasing your prices. And that's kind of what I've heard. I've heard the same kind of thing. So
Awesome. Yeah, market research, seeing what other people are charging. And if you've never been to a holistic health coach or had a holistic health provider, I highly recommend going to one before
yeah,
you become one, right? I think that can be
I
really,
agree.
and asking those questions, I think, are totally appropriate. So Shea did kind of restate her question here. So she says, when you're in a consult with a woman and they bring up something, you don't have a response for them until you do more research, what would that look like? So do you get back to the client, or yeah, like what would that look like if something comes up that maybe you just haven't heard of before, I think is what she's asking.
So I could kind of answer that to kind of prevent that honestly from happening, having people fill out an intake form ahead of time and send it back to you. Or when people schedule like an appointment with me, you have to put a little description in of what you're looking for. So to say like, I have PMS, I'm looking for natural help to support it. So people have to kind of indicate ahead of time between, that the little box to fill out when you're booking an appointment, as well as the full intake form ahead of time to give you kind of the idea. That way you can sit and prepare and research and everything like that ahead of time. But if something else comes up in the appointment and they're like, well, what do you think, my issue is, or the root cause of my issue is, just saying we got to run some labs and testing and stuff like that to do a deeper dive is usually a good response, because honestly, the proof is in the evidence of whatever comes back and whatever analysis, functional medicine testing that you're going to do. In that way, you kind of get the answers as well. I'm not sure if that kind of answers the question or not, but that's kind of my framework of what I do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a great response. Thank you. Tanya, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, my process is pretty much the same. I have an application, so I get a lot of information ahead of time, and I'm really not in the consult I'm really not ever going to diagnose anything. That's not our role as holistic health practitioners. So either way, I'm not sitting in the consult saying, okay, you told me XYZ, this is what's wrong. I'm actually there to just get information from them, and then I'm going to go back into my work, create the holistic health plan, and then get back to them with that.
Awesome.
And you can always ask deeper questions too, because as she said, we're not doctors. So, if they come to me and they say, oh, I had this kind of test done, and you can say, oh, can you tell me more about that kind of testing? We're not trained as medical professionals, so we're not going to have all the answers to all the things, out there. We're not going to pretend to know either. So we're there to kind of have that one-to-one collaborative approach with our clients. And like she said, we're not here to diagnose or treat people. So it's a conversation to be had. So don't be afraid to say, oh, could you tell me more about X condition or X kind of test? Because you kind of have to ask those questions, and then you can do more research, in private later too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is really, really helpful. And since we're coming up on time, this is kind of a bigger topic, but I think it's something that's very relevant to a lot of new business owners. I hear, a lot of people bring this up. So maybe we can just keep it to like one response that comes to mind for both of you. But the question that came up is, how do you deal with imposter syndrome as a new, I don't know if either of you really dealt with that, but how do you, as a new business owner, find the confidence to put yourself out there in this way? Yeah, anything that comes to mind would be helpful. And Tanya, we can start with you if you'd like.
Yeah, I would just say a super quick answer to this. I could go so deep, but I think so many of us struggle with imposter syndrome. And what helps me come out of it is just remembering my passion for supporting other women. I'm not here to represent myself in any way. It's really not about me at all. I'm here to share the information that I've learned with the women who need it. And if I make that my number one goal, it really takes the pressure off of me personally and puts it right into the mission and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, that was so well said. Thank you. Got to stay connected to that why. Isabelle, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the same thing. Know why you're here, know why you're doing it, be yourself, and just don't be afraid to share your story and your reason why behind what you're doing. And just stick to that original mission statement of what your practice and your passion is about.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned something earlier that really intertwines with what you just said. And it's, we don't have to know everything. It's not our role to have all of the answers, right? So I think that also helps to remember that. Great. So I know we're at time here. Just a few pieces of information about our next start date, some of the wellness centered programs that we offer. Again, this is going to be emailed out. So if you wanted to dive into that deeper, also our micro credentials and what we offer here, and that's a great way to build your resume and your skills. I know we didn't get to a lot of the legal questions. I promise you the folks that had those questions, I will follow up with you personally by the end of the week. Any other questions that came up that we weren't able to get to, I will definitely get back to you as well. I appreciate all of the interaction and the questions and comments. And I just want to say a special thank you to both of our panelists today. It has been such an honor to work with you both. And I don't even have words for my excitement for what you're doing in your communities and the need for it and how you're inspiring other people and other women and changing the dynamic of women's healthcare. It's really amazing. So thank you for sharing all of this with us today. And if you want to put anything in the chat, like your podcast, anything you want to add about your business, like your website, if you want to throw that in there real quick. I've had a chance to work with both of these wonderful professionals, but if you're even looking for some support, I can't plug their businesses enough. So I highly recommend working with both of them. So yeah, if you guys want to plug in any information, that'd be great. And yeah, thank you all so much for being there. We'll give it a second just so that Tanya can type that in there for the podcast. And then Isabelle, if you want to add maybe your website, that'd be perfect. Perfect.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun chatting with you.
Yes, thank you both so much. And everyone have a lovely day, and hopefully I'll connect with you soon. Perfect. Thank you, Tanya. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.